Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me, Nidal and David Levy from Vectara, with an amazing session that we're going to speak to you today. What we're finding in the industry around generative AI, the importance of retrieval augmented generation, and hallucinations in large language models. We get asked on a regular basis what we're seeing in the industry, and without a doubt, there's a lot of excitement around giving you expertise and intelligence, what we're seeing in different industries like healthcare, like legal, like medical, and others. But there is an absolute, interest, and there's a lot of questions that we get around financial services. What's the innovation that we're getting from a retrieval augmented generation point of view in financial services? I'm very lucky to bring you a episode today where Stuart Frith, who is the founder of MyWealthai, a two-time customer of Vectara, once at a large organization and once at a startup. And we'll take you through the spectrum of some of the use cases we're finding in the enterprise, but also more importantly, the expertise and the work that we get that he's done as a startup. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Stuart Frith and hand over to you, Stuart.
Thanks, Nidal, and thanks, David. Appreciate the chance to share some experiences and views, and I hope it's of value to the audience. So yeah, I've been in financial services and financial markets for a long time, and I guess spent the last 8 years or so really focused on the wealth management space, and I guess both from my experience, my career experience, but my personal experience, and I'm sure everyone else knows, whether you're trading online direct or whether you're using an advisor, you get just a lot of content, a lot of data is thrown at you, and I say that in the politest way possible, but it is. If it's online, there's lots of stovepipes of data. If it's through an advisor, you're getting emails with content. Usually, it's in PDF or whatever, and all of this content, in my experience, there's interesting things in it. It's worthwhile, but it's in long form. And particularly in relation to the stock market, it's kind of written for either the people who have a doctorate in economics and are serious stock market investors, or it's written for someone like my grandmother. And so, there's really no way that you can engage with content in a way that is familiar to you, that is at the level of depth that you as an individual want to engage in. And so that's really what has driven MyWealthai and us. And I think we really, when we saw generative AI and the power of RAG 18 months ago, we thought, this is the perfect technology for financial services data, which is long form and huge volumes of content, and using generative AI and RAG to create that into more interesting, engaging content for investors.
So that's excellent. That's an excellent introduction to it. There's a lot of fascination about the use cases and the success that you can achieve and the value that you can provide, consumers and customers with generative AI in the financial services industry. Particularly, MyWealthai suggests that you're into the wealth management. Can you give us a bit of a view of, I guess from ideation to inception? How did you actually, start with the business itself, and where are you taking it?
Yeah, sure. So I started. I mean, this has been this issue of investor engagement has been on my mind for probably 8 or 9 years, and then about 18 months ago, generative AI came about, and I was at an infrastructure company that services the private wealth and stockbroking industry in Australia, and myself and my team, we just saw that the generative AI and was the key bit of technology that enabled more interesting and better engagement. And then, of course, when you start to explore that, you realize it has all the problems of hallucination and it's old data and things. And so then we started looking at RAG, and financial services. You just can't have incorrect answers to questions, incorrect insights, because one, you got regulatory problems, and two, you rapidly lose the confidence of your users. And so then we saw that, we played around with Vectara at this company and built some good solutions. And then naturally, when I decided to go and do that on my own, it was to use Vectara. And it is about the enterprise grade, the production level quality. I've spent a lot of my career in the stock exchange industry, where production systems are the lifeblood of the business, and I just have that mindset, and I think anyone needs to in financial services. It's got to be production quality. You've got to be sure of your answers. You've got to have the tools to make it efficient, etc. And Vectara gives us that.
That's great to hear, Stuart. We talk a lot about a trust when it comes to generative AI, and Vectara talk about a trusted system or platform that we provide. What does trust mean to your organization and to the customers?
Yeah, so if you think about if we're taking sort of long form complex content about the financial markets or about investment products, and we're making that, we're regenerating that, if you like, into more interesting content for investors, then trust is about making sure that content is right and there are no errors in it. So if we're talking about a company that has seen a 20% increase in profit, we want it, we want to say that it's a 20%. We don't want to say it's a 30% or it's a lot. You need to be accurate, and that builds the trust. And so really, in my mind, RAG is the solution for that, because you're driving the content off the long form content, so you don't really get that wrong, and then just using generative AI to be the wordsmith, the journalist, or whatever you like, to take those chunks of content and put them into the format that you want.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. And that sort of explains a little bit about RAG, I guess, for the dummies, the retrieval, augmented, and the generation aspects of it, and that whole the different large language models involved in that to providing answers grounded in fact. So that's fascinating. I wanted to sort of dig in a little bit more. Obviously, MyWealthai, I'm a non-educated investor myself, and I think you speak about the spectrum of having your PhD, your smart investor, to you mentioned grandma, but I'll say the non-educated investor like myself. Can you walk me through how you'll be able to distill that information and provide it to me?
Yeah, correct. So what we do is we generate the content for different levels of experience and age. And so what that does is if you're, and when I show you, it'll be with my login, so it'll be a little bit more experience. But if you're an experienced investor, it'll bring in more numbers and more complex terminology, and financial ratios and things like that. If you're an inexperienced investor, it won't do that. And in fact, what's really interesting, if you're an inexperienced investor, it'll explain to you if the company is launched a bid for another company or something like that. It'll actually provide context around that, so you understand what's happening and what the steps are and that sort of thing. So that's how we do it. So from a RAG perspective, I would say we're taking we ask the same question, almost all the same content. Maybe it's slightly different, but 90% of it's the same. And then the generation is with different prompts and different instructions.
All right, excellent. So different data sources, I think you've mentioned a few data sources. Maybe you can now jump a little bit into the data sources that you had and how you've been able to incorporate that into MyWealthai.
Yeah, cool. So the first data source we have is ASX, our stock exchange, the company announcements. So in Australia, there's a continuous disclosure obligation, which means that companies are always publishing any update that shareholders should know about. So we take all that content and we chunk it and RAG it and generate specific new content around that. So we generate a summary, and then we kind of ask AI, well, what is the right next level of detail? So then it can generate like an investor pros and cons, and I'll show you that, which is quite interesting. For that stock, and it also can generate kind of a financial analysis or a strategic analysis or a more technical analysis. So we do that sort of content, so you can get the summary and then drill into the different ways, however you like it. we're now just working through central bank or Reserve Bank of Australia, but like the Federal Reserve in the US, their content. So they publish very detailed economic analysis of the economy of Australia, but also the global trends and how that impacts. So we're summarising that, but we're also summarising that from a stock market investor perspective. So we're looking at how those trends, economic trends that the Reserve Bank sees, how they impact different sectors of the stock market, so how they impact the mining sector or consumer discretionary or healthcare, that sort of thing. And then we're looking to, once we've done that and sort of validated that a bit, then we will combine those two so that you can then start to say, okay, the central bank says, the Chinese economy is going to rebound. So tell me all the companies that are going to profit from that. And so you might, people will probably know the top 20 of the top 20 companies. If you invest in the stock market, they'll profit, but they won't know companies in the bottom 1,000 or the bottom 2,000, so the 2,500 companies listed in Australia. They won't know those. So this is a way to give visibility to smaller companies that may profit from economic trends, etc. Or they will, obviously they all will profit to some level from different economic trends or suffer from those trends. But it's a way to filter in there and get more visibility.
Incredible.
Yep.
So let's talk about the technology a little bit.
Yep.
The technology platform. I'll hand over to you, David.
Yeah, thanks very much, Nidal, and thanks for your answers so far. They're really, really on point. So the first question is really just about, we've looked at and talked through a use case which, has quite challenging data sources coming through. And, typically when people think about these kind of solutions, you'd need data engineers, you'd need data scientists, ML ops sort of specialists. What's your experience been going from, raw data sets to production? And, whether or not Vectara as a platform has, simplified that process, eased it, what are some of your takeaways on that sort of perspective?
Yeah, well, we've built this product, and we'll show it to you, and it's publicly available. We've built it to just very, very recently graduated data science. So there were students, just out of students and myself, and I'm not technical. And so it is very easy to do these things. I know that I can, because I've done it. I can load data, PDFs, just load them into Vectara and start asking questions about them. And what we've found, we've done a lot of, these are always journeys, and we've found different ways of loading the data in. One of the with financial data is tabular data. And so we've worked a bit with Vectara about how to optimize for that, and loaded that in, and the parameter, like I did a lot of the testing, so I'm very familiar with reading chunks and understanding the different, Vectara makes it quite easy. There's a handful of parameters, and they're kind of plain, you understand them and their impacts. So it's not hard to get going. It's pretty easy, actually. And it's not hard to make a production system. It's all it's all Vectara. It's all in the cloud. It's all AWS Vectara. It's
And being able to do some of the testing yourself, did that help you with establishing trust in the system that you were building?
It did, and I was thinking more about this, and I think that if any company, whether it be small or large, is wanting to invest and believes they could get some real business leverage out of technology, you got to have someone involved from a business perspective, and you do have to be a little bit hands-on, and testing is a good way to do that, because one, that gives you confidence. So I'm very confident that the results, I'm sure they're like when they're written by a human, I'm sure they're errors, but I rarely, if ever, see them. So I'm very confident of the quality of the output. But also through that, I've kind of learned what the difficulties and what the good. With any technology, there are things that it does very well, and there are things that it's still evolving to do.
Wonderful.
And so I've learned through that, not necessarily with RAG, because that's kind of, well, I mean, with PDF documents and tabular data, we work through that sort of stuff. But with AI, generative AI, to understand how, what its capabilities really are. Yes, it can generate, summaries out of existing stuff. That's really easy. When we asked it to generate out of the central bank, the RBA data, to generate, an analysis for each sector of the stock market about how that it did a really good job. And then when I went and said, oh, that's really interesting. It's right. It's interesting. But I didn't remember reading it in the central bank document. So you go back and it's not there. But the underlying facts are there. So it's right. So what you're learning is that to some level, you can rely on generative AI to analyze and extrapolate, but you don't want to rely on that too much. And so there's some etc. So but as a business owner or as a business leader in an organization, you've got to have a sense of that. So you've got to be and we see stories of where it's gone wrong. There's some really interesting ones for poor old McDonald's and their ordering.
Yes, I heard about that one. And look, they tried it for quite a while, but yeah.
And I heard of a very similar issue where a large bank in Australia was using generative AI for client onboarding, and they found it's wrong. And kind of, you got to work out what it's good for in your business and focus on.
So some key takeaways I really like from that is it still really highly values the business know-how to validate processes to make sure GenAI is not going in strange directions. Just on the business side, any advice for anyone who is maybe a domain expert that's considering putting forward a GenAI solution? So other startups, hopefully in slightly different verticals than your own, so you're not competing too closely. But any advice, for using a system like Vectara, validating that it does actually help get you where you might want to go?
No, I think the advice would be if you've got a sample of your data that's a reasonable, get an account on Vectara and load it up, watch a couple of videos and understand the parameters and start asking questions and start generating stuff and learning from that. I think it's kind of the 80-20 rules. Probably 80% of what you ask it'll be good, and 20% will be. But you can refine that down. That's probably where you need some level of technical knowledge.
And that's always historically been where GenAI solutions struggle, because if you can't fine tune that last 20, that might be the barrier that stops you getting to production. But if there's a pathway to get there, that will get you something that is going to be recognized as a leader. So really great answers. So hey, Nidal, thank you for the technical segment. I'll pass back, and I think we've got the more interesting demo side now.
Yeah, I think just before we go into the demo, you spoke about the McDonald's situation. Can you just tell us what that was all about?
Well, they used AI or generative AI for drive-in ordering, I think, instead of people, and it confused things, and so people ended up ordering 250 drinks, or they ordered a smoothie or milkshake, ice cream or whatever with chips on top or something. It just kind of, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a good backstory there, but it's in the media and a classic story, I think, of trying to go too fast with new technology, trying to think it can do anything and not really appreciating the complexity that humans deal with in ordering things like McDonald's. And so that's really been my focus with our product, is to start with things that we know that technology is good at, and know it can, and then you can build from that and explore, and which we're starting to do. But don't start with, we didn't start with using generative AI to create financial advice. I mean, we played around with it, kind of does some interesting things that way, but you couldn't rely on it.
Yeah, totally agree. And we find that quite often, Stuart. Organizations might reach out and quite excited, and they want to get a win on the executive level. So we're going to invest in this, but we're looking for a quick win. And the quick win might be just too ambitious with what they're after. And obviously, generative AI is many things. So it can, and it's a misconception of AI and generative AI and what large language models and what RAG can do for you in enterprise as well. So we usually tell customers, and we sort of provide them advice. It started with a targeted use case that can achieve, but most importantly for you to discover how to extract knowledge and information out of your data using RAG. Once you start doing that, then you know where your limits are and what the expectations are for success. And bit by bit, you can actually up the ante and do more sophisticated use cases and introduce other points into your data pipeline. So yeah, that's very, very interesting that you say that. Very exciting to hear what you've been doing, Stuart. But without further ado, if we can actually get a bit of a demo from you. And see it in action, that would be really awesome for the audience.
Okay, is that sharing?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Good. Okay, excellent. So this is MyWealthai. So we're logged in here as myself, but you can see the same thing if you go to mywealthai.com.au. Anyone can see it in public. When you're logged in, you get a little bit more. You get to create a watch list. So here you can see these are content based on ASX announcements. So you can see this is today, and price sensitive means that it has a material impact on the stock price. So you can see that. You can see the code, and we generate keywords out of that so that you can kind of at a high level see what's this announcement about. So you can scroll through and see the summary. There's a lot more than there were a couple of minutes ago. So the one I wanted to show you, and this was interesting for me because I hold the shares, is Steadfast Group. So Steadfast is an insurance broking company. So they so you can see here they've had an investor day, growth and expansion, and this one here is just a summary, a really short summary. You can then go back. Let me find that again. Sorry, that was the wrong one. Sorry, I've gone too far, haven't I?
That's okay. While you scroll through that, I kind of like how you have the filters on the side as well. And something that's very interesting to see is that there's a watch list. I'll hand over to you again for Steadfast.
Yeah. So there's a watch list, and I'll show you that and the filters. So here is the announcement. So strong growth and expansion. So you get a summary of that. Premium pricing, robust pipeline. They've acquired another company and then taken a decision to invest in the US market, which is huge for insurance. They've shown efficiency, cost management through strategic pricing, and a significant investment in state-of-the-art technology to sustain growth. So you get that kind of high-level thing, and from here you can copy the link, copy the text, or send the email. You can comment and you can vote up or down. And then you can go into deep dive. So this one here will show you the investment opportunities and the pros and cons. So for Steadfast at this time, strong financial performance, they're expanding, technology advancements, they've got a robust balance sheet, effective risk management, and the investment risks are the cons. Market integration risks, they're going to a new market, increased financial leverage, execution, stock valuation, etc. So you can kind of, starting at this, and you can drill down. There's also another one about financial performance here. So it talks about improved net profit margins, strong current ratio, balanced debt to equity. So again, this is because I'm define myself as a more experienced investor, you wouldn't get this level of complexity.
But Stuart, that's very interesting that you mentioned that. So where's the prompt engineering part of this to make it easy for me, the non-educated investor, to understand? I saw the different sections.
Yep. Sorry, what do you mean? Where is that? That's in terms of how we do. Do you mean technically or?
No, I can see that there's in the summarizations, there's very clear sections defined. So that must be some of the prompt engineering you guys have done in the background.
Yeah, it is. It's so and it's the prompt engineering to generate the summary points and to generate the summary and to then determine what from each announcement, what is worth going into more detail on. So that's what we do there. We have, you can refresh home. We can filter for price sensitive, which is probably quite a common thing that people would want to do because that shows the important things. We can filter by sector, so you can look at, just show me what's happening in financials today. Say Vanguard, QBE, etc. It's not today, it's in the last couple of days, but you see, so you can filter by stock, and then you can have your own watch list. So this is my watch list, and you can add stocks to it or remove them. That's the list of stocks. And you see not just the announcements today, but you see the announcements going back, a period of time. Month, I think it is. And then within my watch list here, I can, if I edit the details, I'm keeping mine's public. I could make it private, but it's public, and then I can copy a link and share it with people if I want to.
All right, excellent. Well, clearly you've shared it with the whole world on this recording, so no need to make it private.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's there's the idea, and this is a PWA, progressive web app, so you can download it, store it on your home screen, and it will provide notifications through your phone as well. So it's what we've built is the core of it, and the reason we think it can add value is because we're able to extract insight and value out of all that long form content using Vectara and using generative AI, and then put it into a social media like interaction, so that the person who wants to invest in the stock market or who invests, they can download it, they can look at it when they're on the train, they can flick through and they can catch up with what's happening in the market, what's happening in their portfolio.
That's outstanding, Stu. I really appreciate you sharing this. And I do have another question. Yep. Financial institutions, are you trying to also market this platform for outside of just the consumer market?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, so I don't think I can make money from the consumer market. I hope it's a value though. But we have a lot of interest from brokers and wealth advisors about incorporating it into their client experience and their portals, etc. But also from listed companies who, because we have 2,200 listed companies, a lot of the smaller ones really struggle for visibility. And so the ability for them to provide their content with other content and add that and have that a bit more visible in a tool like this is quite interesting for them. So yeah, there's really good interest all around. And it generally triggers discussions like, that's really interesting. Could I do a monthly summary for all my clients of what's happening in their portfolio? Or which, as you guys will know, is pretty easy to do. You just do another question in Vectara, pulls the summary, the chunks, and generate it from there.
That's phenomenal. Well, we really thank you for joining us today and for sharing so much goodness. I think the audience would have got a treat of understanding how to use generative AI, large language models, and RAG, basically to generate insights for wealth management from a platform. I thought also there's a great points around how organizations can start somewhere. And great story from your end as a startup to what you benefited in your career, and understanding and really able to utilize a revolution that's happened with generative AI to create your startup. That's a great story. We wish you all the success in the world, and we're very lucky and honored to be part of this journey with you, Stuart.
You guys have been great partners, so thank you very much.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So just wanted to say thank you again for David for joining us today. And I hope the audience have got some good concepts on both technology and business from today's episode. Until next time, goodbye.